What is maritime law? Maritime law, additionally regarded as Admiralty law, is a physique of laws, conventions, and treaties that govern personal maritime commercial enterprise and different nautical matters, such as transport or offenses going on open water. International guidelines governing the use of the oceans and seas are recognized as the law of the sea. Understanding maritime law. In most developed nations, maritime law follows a separate code and is an impartial jurisdiction from countrywide laws. The United Nations, through the International Maritime Organization, has issued several conventions that can be enforced through the navies and coast guards of international locations that have signed the treaty outlining these rules. Maritime regulation governs many of the insurance plan claims concerning to ships and cargo, civil things between ship owners, seamen, and passengers, and piracy. Additionally, maritime regulation regulates registration, license, and inspection approaches for ships and delivery contracts, maritime insurance, and the carriage of items and passengers. The IMO is accountable for making sure that current global maritime conventions are stored up to date as properly as creating new agreements as and when the one arises. Today, there are dozens of conventions regulating all factors of maritime commerce and transport. The IMO names 3 conventions as its core: the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, the International Convention on Standards of Training, Certification, and Watchkeeping for Seafarers. The governments of the 175 IMO member states are accountable for the implementation of IMO conventions for ships registered in their nation. Local governments put into effect the provisions of IMO conventions as their ships are worried and set the penalties for infringements. In some cases, ships need to lift certificates on board to exhibit that they have been inspected and have met the required standards. History of maritime law. The origins of maritime regulation can be traced all the way lower back to historical Egypt. In these days, ships have been used to transport items, and honestly described set of guidelines was once wished to make sure security and truthful alternate and settle disputes between exceptional parties. However, it wasn't until a great deal later that the first written document of formal codes can be found. The Rhodian Sea Laws, fashioned between 900 and 300 BC, set legit regulations for the Mediterranean Sea. These legal guidelines ruled seafaring change in the area, influenced the Romans, and remained an impact for a very lengthy time. European maritime legal guidelines step by step developed over the following centuries. Key tendencies that helped to form contemporary legal guidelines blanketed the Consulate of the Sea, the Rolls of Oran, and the early English Admiralty laws, which would later assist to structure the legal guidelines of the sea in the U.S. Maritime regulation arrived in the U.S. in the 1600s. However, it wasn't until 1789 that federal district courts have been given jurisdiction over Admiralty regulation instances, and a uniform physique of regulation was once created. Ship registration under maritime law. The U.S. of registration determines a ship's nationality. For most ships, the countrywide registry is the United States of America, the place the proprietors stay and function their business. Ship owners will regularly register their ships in international locations that enable overseas registration. Called flags of convenience, the overseas registration is beneficial for tax planning and to take gain of lenient nearby laws. 2 examples of flags of convenience international locations are Panama and Bermuda. What is maritime law and why is it important? Maritime regulation is the physique of regulations that govern the entirety that goes on in the sea and open waters. These guidelines assist clear up more than a few disputes that can appear and make certain that the human beings and businesses that work on the water behave efficaciously and are protected. Who controls maritime law? International maritime regulation is ruled by means of the International Maritime Organization, the specialized organization of